And I believe that there are some specific things I'm supposed to say for the recording, which is, I always forget to say this is Catherine Duffy. I'm the convener of the Creation Care Network for Province 5, and this is our August meeting. It's August 3rd, 2020. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, let's open in prayer. Jerry and Heather get tired of me calling on them, so I think I'll just go off the top of my head this morning, if nobody minds. So let us pray. Almighty God, we are grateful to you for bringing us together and gathering us so we can hear your voice and know your will as we try to do our best to care for your beautiful creation. We just ask that you guide us and help us be the kindest and most loving and truest versions of you that we can. And we ask these things in the name of your most holy Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. All right. So, usually, depending on the group that we've gathered, whether we know each other or not, we just jump right into talking or we start with some introductions. But today, since we have a few new faces and people that I believe don't know each other, I think we will start with some introductions. So why don't we say your name, your parish, and your diocese, and then, why you showed up today. And I'm actually curious, two things, something that you hope to get from the group, and then something that you think you can give and add to our group. And that could be anything in terms of creation care or, anything at all. So I'll go first because you don't ask people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself, I guess, right? So my name is Catherine Duffy. I am at All Saints in New Albany, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus in the Diocese of Southern Ohio. And I am the chair of the Creation Care team at All Saints and obviously the convener of this Province 5 network. And then I'm also on a team called Solarize Ohio with Ken Wright here that is on the phone with us. And we are working to put solar panels on as many Episcopal churches in our diocese as we can. And we've been working on the project for about a year. And we're moving forward to the point where we're actually visiting churches and actually it's actually happening. So one thing that I think I can bring to the group is motivation about starting a creation care team where it just feels like I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward. How do I gather folks at my congregation? It's something that we did and we muddled through, and we've found some success over the last 18 months or so. And then one thing I'd really love to get from this group, of course, is better ways that the province can serve you in terms of creation care, because we always want to make our gatherings useful and the resources of the province useful. So hearing that from you guys is really, really helpful. So let's see. And I think we're going to do this, since everybody's pictures are in different order, we're going to do I'm going to call on you. Heather was raising her hand. She was volunteering to go next. So.
Heather would like to
say,
Heather Barta, I am the coordinator of Province 5. I am thrilled with this group that's gathering. Catherine is the convener of this group, and we are so lucky as a whole province, and as you'll hear, multiple provinces, of being able to work together and her leadership with us. So a thank you to Catherine. Also, Rick is on the call, and he is a board member of the Province 5 Executive Board. And so this is just one of the many networks that's happening in the province. So if you have any questions at all about, what's going on? How do I get connected in? If there are other places that you hear about connections or networks, I am the person to talk to about that. So it's my job to help foster these conversations and and the communication. So if I can do anything to help, let me know. Thanks.
And Heather, before you stop, would you mind saying, for anybody who doesn't know, just kind of what the role of a province actually is, the sort of unofficial, official gathering of dioceses?
Sure. So Province 5, so first of all, you're all in Province 5 except Jerry, because Jerry's special and he's 4, so he'll tell you about Province 4. So you know that you have your parish and you have your diocese, and then there's a province. And in some places, the province sort of gets ignored or doesn't gather together. Province 5 historically has liked working together. So Province 5 includes all of the dioceses in the states of Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois. I got all those, right?
Half Missouri.
Half
Yeah,
of
you got it
Missouri.
right.
So there's one diocese of Missouri that is Province 5. And so historically, again, we've liked together, we like to be together. And so the executive board hires a coordinator, which is me, to help make things happen. So it's the province's role to help you with things that you can't do at a parish or diocesan level, right? To get the connections that you can't get, to get some information you can't get, to be able to connect with people at a broader range. There are some things that parishes do really, really well, and some things that dioceses can do really, really well. And so the province, and especially Province 5, wants to help you do those things, make those connections, to make a better, bigger web of connection and networking, so that you can do the ministry in your diocese or in your parish. Is that what you were hoping I'd say, Catherine? Fabulous.
And now I'm hoping you'll call on somebody else.
Oh, well, I would like to invite Rick then. So Rick sort of jumped onto this group as a board member, so.
Thank you, Heather. My name is Rick Stenitis, and I serve at the Canterbury House at Michigan Tech, which is located in the Diocese of Northern Michigan. We're a freestanding Canterbury House, and right now we're, like all institutions in education, we're in an online-only setting, so it's a rather new way of doing business. And as Heather mentioned, I do serve on the Province 5 Executive Board. So the hope was to strengthen the connection between our provincial board and this group. I hope to bring to this group in these meetings a perspective from the far western Upper Peninsula. We're right on the shore of Lake Superior. We have lots of tremendous, beautiful creation here, and hopefully going to initiate some excitement with college students. We have, this is a perfect time for students to engage in creation type activities, and it's safe. They can be together outside, or, safe. And I think that young people that don't know the Episcopal Church might find it appealing to know that we have a whole part of our church that's very passionate about our creation. So glad to be on the call. I'm going to call on Nancy.
Hi. You might hear sanding or a dog bark, so I'll be quick as I can. I am a priest at Calumet Christ Church, way up in the UP of Michigan. And I am in the Diocese of Northern Michigan, and I've been stomping around and caring for the creation since the 1970s. Up here, I'm tasked with beginning a website for our diocese that focuses on creation, care, the beloved community, and justice and peace. And I'm a neophyte at building web pages, so it's been a slow process, but I am still working on it. And my contribution to the group is I really am looking for materials for different events like Earth Day, and the other day I got a request for water prayers because people were trying to have ceremonies for water. So trying to build a place our diocese and others can come and find materials, or vice versa, use the ones that are posted on creation care. And I'm really interested in ramping up on the season of creation that's coming here in September, October. So that's kind of where I'm working. And I will pick on, I don't know, Emily, you want to go next?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm Emily Ulmer. I am the programs manager at Plainsong Farm here in West Michigan. We are a ministry of the Diocese of West Michigan. And I'm sort of new summer program manager and thinking about transitioning into having that be a more long-term role for me. So that's really exciting. And you're hearing this first, so keep it tamped down a little bit. But that's one of the reasons why I'm here is I'm interested in seeing some of the larger networks of folks that are like-minded and doing similar work. Nouria has, if you know, Nouria Love Parish is doing some of that work in all kinds of other ways, but I'm trying to sort of connect and see, and as I sort of discern what programming is going to look like in the next year for Plainsong, like what's already happening, and just sort of, that's kind of trying to do this sort of listening and discernment around that right now. I bring a passion for particularly pastoral care in context of Anthropocene. I'm really interested in how we care for those that are grieving while they are still at home. We, I think are all who are affected by climate change aware that we are losing something and have little power around that eco-anxiety. And so thinking about how we can care for people in that work, and not to let that grief deepen in people, but also to move us beyond grief in many kinds of ways to action. And so holding both of those things is something that I'm passionate about and think a lot about. It's nice to be with you all. And I'm just, hoping to learn more about the networks that are connected. And I'm going to call on Ken.
Hi, this is Ken Wright in the Diocese of Southern Ohio. Parish is St. Simon of Cyrene in a little suburb of Cincinnati called Lincoln Heights. And I'm an engineer by training and temperament, and got involved and interested in solar, I guess back in the 80s when I helped lead a project to put a smaller solar system on a church in Haiti. And been dabbling in the solar ever since. And as Catherine mentioned, I'm involved with the group to try to solarize as many of our churches here in Southern Ohio as we can do. And that's about it. Let's see. I'm not under the benefit of seeing the screen, so I'll have to pass it over to somebody who can see the next person on the line there.
We'll pass to Elliot because he's right above you, at least on my screen he is.
Okay, works. Elliot?
Hi, I'm Elliot Bush. I'm here in Upper Arlington, Ohio, which is where I live, but my church is St. Stephen's in Columbus. And I led a church reading of Laudato Si and discussion of each chapter back in Eastertide. And out of that, we sent some recommendations to the church council about improving the church's environmental footprint, and got told in response, we'll get to that when we figured out things about the shutdown and reopening. And in the meantime, we would need the help of your team. Well, I didn't have a team. So I recruited some, and one of my team members has signed on today as well for the first time. I'm happy to see that. In the meantime, what we're doing is different team members have taken up different tasks in the church, and my task is, since I'm just I don't know, researching is something that just pushes my buttons. So I do a lot of online research, and every week I write a blog for the church's website called Creation Care, and put together links to things that I found in my research around specific topics. This week's blog is about nationwide environmental newsletters that I found interesting and helpful. Not all of them are religious, but they all carry further links to ongoing and up-and-coming stories. And I've also done how to blog on plastics and how to get rid of them, a blog on the Episcopal Church's sources for environmental care and the whole Creation Care program. And I can't remember what else I've done. And I got a bunch of other ones lined up to do in the future, including composting and I did one on environmental racism. And in the meanwhile, more and more new stuff comes out. So sooner or later, I'm going to have to do a catch-up blog. I don't, other than my research skills, which you are free to see simply by logging on to St. Stephen's Columbus.org, and the Saint is just ST. You can just, all the blogs are there. They're called Creation Care. They're green, have a nice logo. You have to scroll down a little bit to find the old ones, but they're all there, and you can look at them and see if there's anything there that's worth your while. Thank you, Nancy, for the talk about water, because I could do a blog on water also, just by looking for that stuff. So that's what I might bring. I am going to call on Jerry. Have you gone yet?
I have not. Thank you. Jerry Capel. I'm a priest in the Diocese of Kentucky, so around Louisville. And I'm the Province 4 Creation Care or Environmental Network Coordinator. So that's why I hang around with these guys. Besides, they do a whole lot better work than we do. So that's why I hang around these guys. So I'm a priest at St. James Episcopal there. And the rest of my time is taken up a lot with environmental network ministry and work with the Center for Religion and Environment at the University of South. So the Sewanee has this organization. So between church and province work and Sewanee work, that takes up, most of my time. And, then probably ought to live a life or something, but it doesn't seem to work that way. No. So anyway, yeah, so I've been hanging out with these guys for months, but no more than months, I'd say, and trying to revitalize Province 4 along the same sort of lines. And in the Episcopal Church, those are probably the only two provinces that are even in conversation about this that I can find really in any sustained way. Okay, so that's that. Christopher, how are you?
Thanks, Jerry. My name is Christopher Beasley. I serve as the bivocational rector at St. Peter's in Lebanon, Indiana, which is the Diocese of Indianapolis. So we're about 20 miles northwest of downtown Indianapolis. Why I'm here is we have 2.5 acres that we're farming now on our property, the Growing Common Grounds Farm. And I got connected with this group about 8 to 10 months ago because this is a lot of the work that we do. We are about care creation, and we are transitioning ourselves to think of ourselves no longer as the church that farms or grows, but we are the farm with the church. And I really just find, a lot of the things that we hear in these meetings, I find them very helpful to continue to generate new ideas of where we can continue to grow and to share the experiences that we've been doing, the partnerships that we're developing, the work with solar in our gardens as far as watering and things like that. Get a lot of good ideas. That's why I'm here. Let's see. I think Greg, I don't think you've gone.
No, I'm Greg Schneider. I'm deacon at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Beloit, Wisconsin, which is the Diocese of Milwaukee. We're fairly new to this group and really have enjoyed everything we've learned and what's going on here. We've looked at creation care and have done some things at our church. We want to expand that on beyond our church into much of the community and see as much as we can. My wife, Susan Adams, who's on another meeting right now, will probably join us when she's finished. But she's the one that I'm going to let head the work at our congregation in order to do that, as she's interested in that, and I've got ties into a number of other things. I like the idea of solar. In fact, we're talking about putting solar on our house. Probably will make a decision in the next week or so to do that. We're just not sure which company. But we'll look at something with our church as a possibility at some point to get. Let's see what it would take to put solar on the church to be able to do things. So, just been interested in creation care and taking care of the environment for a long time, and have done a lot of things with that. Our gardens around our house are all native plants, or almost all native plants, and we're working hard to expand that into more of the yard. So it's been just a big interest for both of us. So.
Wonderful. Thanks, Greg. And I think Rich, is that Rich's the last one, right?
No.
Well, it's really good to be with all of you. Keeps my interests going. Background-wise, I'm a retired science educator, retired environmental education director center. I'm also a spiritual director, and I served as the chair of the environmental committee at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland when I lived up there, as well as after that, the environmental committee at Disciples Christian Church in Cleveland Heights. I currently reside in Columbus, and I'm a member at St. Stephen's with Elliot, and I'm really happy to be serving on the creation care team there. So I think that what I bring to the group is a lot of past experience in creation care. It's a passion of mine in terms of my own spirituality and just connecting with the natural world. And I hope that I can bring that to this group as well along the way. So that's kind of me.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that's our whole group. And I want to point out in listening to you guys, kind of the threefold purpose of our group. One, which we've already covered, is to know one another, right? Sometimes when you're isolated in your work and you feel like you're the only one working on Christian care, it's really nice to come together with other folks and just know that there's other people out there working on the same things that you're working on, right? Even though they're spread across the geographic distance. And then you have the resource sharing piece of it. So I wrote down a few questions I had from your guys' introductions, and I wanted to go back actually and ask specific people things if you don't mind. But it's the sharing of resources and ideas between the people on this call. With one another, so we can all expand ministry of creation care. And then the third one, and this is the one that it's kind of new, but we're sort of inching toward it, is actual province-based organized ministry. And I was going to, after I asked the questions that I just alluded to, update you guys with Heather and Jerry's help and Greg's help about something that we're working on a provincial level, plus Province 4. We allow Jerry to be part of our crew. That we think is a really exciting endeavor. We're just at the beginning steps of taking that on, but I thought it might be nice, Jerry, to bring the group up to speed and then just sort of, ask for any thoughts on what we were missing. So kind of that 3 tiers: the individual connection, the sharing of resources among the group, and then what are we doing on a province level. So if you guys don't mind, a couple things jumped into my mind as you guys were talking. And the first thing I wrote down was for Nancy, you mentioned the season of creation. And I know a little bit about that. Does everybody else know what the season of creation is? I see some people nodding, but maybe some folks don't. Can you say a little bit about what the season of creation is? Hey, Susan.
Well, they have a nice printout on the site, and it has services and comments by several different clergy from Anglican as well as Lutheran, and I can't remember all of them. But they have pieces to insert in your bulletin. They have hymns to use, and it's on the Creation Care website where I printed it off from.
Is it just, it's like October or something every year? I can't remember, because I have looked at this, but.
It's September 1st to October 4th this year. And
This is something
so you can include things in the bulletins.
From my understanding, this is actually originally an impetus of Pope Francis and the Roman Catholic Church, to which a large number of other denominations have signed on, and at least I'm assuming that because I keep getting emails of more documents and more ideas, and will you join this and will you join that from Catholic organizations. So it's but it is ecumenical. And I'm not sure exactly why that month was chosen. Do you know, Nancy?
It's been kind of cooking around for a while to have it in this harvest season, but I don't know exactly why.
I think that's largely why. Earth Day doesn't work because you're too close to Easter and Lent and everything, which would have been natural, right? We used to have a lot of Creation Care stuff around Earth Day, but April and March is always problematic. So I think finally maybe it took the Pope to say, we're going to give it a liturgical, we're going to put it on the calendar, and September is easy. I think. I don't know how.
It also works. It also is a time that works for both hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
So that there are different things happening around growing season in different places. I think the World Council of Churches has been hugely instrumental in putting this together. They've been doing really good things for years on Creation Care as evangelism. And so I think that's part of the ties that is coming here.
Thank you. That was actually really helpful, Emily. Okay, so here's a question just from me that I was wondering. So I don't know how many of you guys actually read the email newsletter that I send out, but every month, so we've had 3 so far since we started doing it. And every month I try to feature a ministry, you know, so we had Plainsong Farm last month, maybe Bellwether Farm, which is here in the Diocese of Ohio, amazing space. And then I think I did a church in South Bend that has a big, beautiful garden. And then Christopher, you guys were going to be my August, but that's really the end of my list. What else is out there? Do you guys know of any other, you know, churches with garden ministries or farms or some, just things I don't know about, because my list is really, like, that's it. I had 4 months worth of farms, and I don't want to feature ours. Yes, Emily, go.
I actually have a number. One of the things that we're doing this summer at Plainsong has been creating this Good News Garden program. And so there's the National Good News Garden Network, and then we have sort of a regional based one. And there are a number of churches in that network who have been farming, and in some ways we've just sort of helped connect some faith stories for them or give them a little more garden education videos. But a number of these churches are already farming or gardening, and a lot of them have come out of their Creation Care group at their church. So I sort of have a whole list that if you would want me to, like, it would just mostly be Western and Eastern Michigan.
That would be awesome.
I could definitely funnel a list to you of some
that would be fabulous. Thank you. That would get me through, you know, next year. So anybody else? I just come to the end of these lists really quickly. So, and I really don't want to feature the one at my own church. So yes, Elliot.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
One of my team would very much like to listen in on the Diocesan Solar Team talk, which I guess would be, Ken, are you going to be one of the people doing that at the
Midwest Regional
Right.
Sustainability Summit. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah. But
Well,
she
Craig
says,
talked about
she thinks that she'd have to pay the $85 fee for the whole weekend or whole conference in order to listen to your talk. Is that true?
I suspect it is, although you can plead poverty and probably, negotiate a rate, but that seems like, I agree with you. It seems a little whatever, but, we could probably arrange to have something for you all if you're interested in, to do a representation of that same pitch, or just to sit down and chat with you all about it.
Let me stop for just 1 second and explain what they're talking about. So there's a big organization based in Cincinnati called Green Umbrella, and they have a big conference every year called the Green Umbrella Summit. It was originally supposed to be on May 1st. And Ken and another member of our Solarize Ohio team were going to present a panel, kind of simply put, on the power purchase agreement project that we're doing with the solar panels. And that had obviously been canceled and has been postponed to a virtual event that's this Thursday at 3:30. That was, Elliot, actually the very next thing on my list. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I hadn't realized that it would have cost money to see it. But what then, Ken, I think what you're saying is that you alone, or you and Craig, if there were interest, would come back to this group and talk about what we've been doing and kind of the nuts and bolts of putting together the power purchase agreement. Because for you guys' reference, there's no out-of-pocket cost for the parishes to do this. They go into a electrical agreement basically with a company, a developer, and then they get the solar power for ideally less than what they're paying AEP or whoever their electrical provider is. And then it goes for a certain number of years. And I don't know, Ken, that's PPA in a nutshell, right? So
Yep. Exactly.
yeah, so that was the context of that conversation.
Well, I'm not speaking for Craig. I mean, he and I haven't talked about it, but I can't imagine that he wouldn't be willing to do this. Also, we've got the presentation already. It's just a matter of 10 or 15 minutes to run through it, or whatever format people want to hear. I mean,
and please just let us know if that is of interest to the group, because the company that we're working with is called Fellowship Energy Finance. They've actually done agreements in other dioceses across the country. Not too many, they're pretty new, but they've done a couple in California, Virginia. The difficulty with Ohio is the way our electricity is structured is actually difficult. It's difficult to make money on the agreements. It's not like California where energy is really expensive, so putting up solar is like a no-brainer. It's actually close to break even in Ohio, so it's a little harder. But one of the hopes for us is that when we figured out the nuts and bolts of this project, we can actually give our methodology to other dioceses, so they can start putting solar panels on their parishes. And again, there's no out-of-pocket cost for the churches. They just agree to get their power from the panels for a certain amount of time. And
we figure if you can do it in Ohio, you could probably do it anywhere.
Yeah, no
right?
kidding. We about have the least friendly environment for renewables anywhere. Elliot.
Yeah, I think I certainly would appreciate that presentation at a future meeting of this group then, because then all I'd have to do is let the member of my team know when it was happening, and she could just log in along with the rest of us and listen to your presentation.
Yeah.
Great. And
if you want to set something up outside of the normal meeting times, that's fine too. Whatever works best for you. If you don't want to go to a regular meeting.
No, I think it's great. I mean, one of the things that we talked about was using this time topically, and then we can just let people know in advance. And if people are not interested in the particular topic, then they, can miss that meeting or whatever. But and Elliot, and I would invite as many people actually from your congregation to come as possible, because we're actually doing the site visit. We'll be doing the site visit at St. Stephen's for your guys' panels within the next couple of weeks. I know we're having a meeting later this week to set that time. So it might be a great opportunity for folks at St. Stephen's to learn about the panels before they actually appear on the roof. So
Yeah, and of course I noticed that on all of these Zoom meetings, there was a record button down there. And so even if, and if people couldn't come at the time that the presentation was made, I could just record the presentation and they could watch it another time.
And then the one other thing that I'll do is figure out if there actually is a cost for that. If anybody's at all interested in the in going to the thing on Thursday, I can find out if it does cost money. And then,
I'd appreciate that, and if you could let me know by Wednesday, I could let my team member know.
I will, because somebody else said she was definitely going to go, so I'll ask her if she paid. So, Christopher, I'm just reading your note here.
Yeah, so St. Albans here in Indianapolis, Diocese of Indianapolis, they're in the inner city on the Near East side of Indianapolis, and they have been doing garden work for many years and have, about a half acre that they do and probably 10,000 pounds of produce a year. But the thing that's interesting about them is, as they started this a couple years ago, so as the homicide rate continues to increase for every homicide in the city of Indianapolis, they plant a cross in the grounds and then they plant tomato plants or something around it. So you see out of the deaths that they are, symbolizing, you see new life growing around it. And I think it's just an interesting witness that they're doing there in the midst of where a lot of the gun violence and things are going on. So, it's another idea, there might be.
It's wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate that, and Emily, your suggestions as well. So, so the last thing, and actually before I move on, is there any other? Yes.
I just wanted to inform you, I'm pretty sure it's still operating, but the Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland has a community garden program in the inner city. And it's all to provide fresh produce for the neighborhoods, which are the poor neighborhoods of that part of Cleveland. So you might want to check with Trinity Cathedral to see how that's going.
Thank
but when
you.
I was there, it was very, very active.
I'm putting this in the chat mostly for my own notes, so I have it for later. What else before we move on to the next? Questions for anybody else on the group based on what you heard in their introductions? Okay, so I'm gonna put, go ahead, Jerry.
Have you done a piece on Wild Church? You're looking for articles. Have you done Wild Church?
I haven't, thank you.
Oh, they're really active up there, so.
Yes, yeah, of course. I know Lonnie has come to these meetings before, so.
And there's a thing that I just put on the Facebook page from her. So make sure to check out the Facebook page. Did I put that? There's an event coming up tomorrow with Wild Church.
So one of the things, or the thing, I guess, that we talked about on our July meeting was that the presiding bishop's office on Becoming Beloved Community implementation has rapid response grants to address racial disparity from COVID-19 and ongoing racial injustice and police violence. We started talking about if there was anything that we could do provincially to apply for a grant and meet that need. And so we've had the folks that were on the call, there was a lot of interest that rose up around a particular idea. And we've met a few times since then to kind of flesh it out and move forward. So Jerry, if you don't mind, I'm actually gonna turn to you to just give the rest of the group, besides the folks who've been on the calls, a little bit more information about how we're moving forward. And then I wanted to ask, I think, for thoughts, for feedback, any resources that we may be missing that we can look at as a group, and so on and so on. So yeah.
Okay. The idea is that in this particular time in the life of the United States and the rest, maybe the rest, a big chunk of the world, but the United States in particular, there is a huge social conversation going on about racism. And I think more importantly, all of the aspects of white fragility and white privilege and those deeper and more challenging parts of that conversation, I guess. And so we were running with the idea that, number one, is it true that ecological problems, environmental devastation and exploitation and all of that that we also live with actually has the same sort of roots and sources as does racism? And if so, then the same challenging conversation and the same challenging aspects of that conversation would apply. And that if this is a particular time in this country when those harder conversations are actually to the forefront, is this a good time to see if we can't take that opportunity to ask the question, is what's being done in terms of racial reconciliation a teaching tool as well for environmental reconciliation? And the same pedagogy, and the same conversation, and the same work that it is to reconciliation, the same kind of work be applied to environmental reconciliation. And if so, can we write something up along that line? And so that's where the grant comes in. So can we listen carefully to the racial reconciliation conversation and see if there is a way to create a parallel that would be about environmental, ecological reconciliation, asking the same sorts of questions, probing the same sorts of issues, engaging the same sorts of conversations, seeking the same sorts of repentances, and so on. So that's what we've been working on, trying to figure out, number one, if it's valid, and number two, how would we do it? I guess. And I don't know, Catherine, is that what you need, or is there something more you want?
No, I mean, I think that's a pretty good summary. I think that's a pretty good summary. We've tried to look at whether there are existing resources at this time that kind of meet that need. And by resources, we mean something that in the future, a small group could use to shift thinking or learn about the kind of the spiritual causes of environmental degradation first, if that makes sense. So just kind of trying to walk through this process and figure out who we need to talk to and how we need to figure it out, and see if applying for the grant kind of takes us anywhere, if that's fair. So yeah.
So we create a team of people who hopefully can speak to both sides, maybe. Is there we do suspect that there actually is a pathway, a common process across several of the pieces that have been created for racial reconciliation. One of the starting places it seems to be that's common is called truth telling, and is that also then something that we would imitate on the ecological conversation side? So is there an existing pattern that we would, in case of the grant, say, this is the existing pattern and here's how we want to apply it, kind of thing? And can we get the right people at the table to help us think through that? The kind of people who can help us write, the kind of people who have experience on the ground on the racial reconciliation side, to consult, keep us from doing something stupid. And it's also hard to find actually people of color so far to help. Not, I think, because no one said no, it's because we haven't we're in our, I don't know, too much in our white enclave. I don't know, but it's just been, that's been a challenge, and so on.
So thank you, Jerry. That's really helpful. So the reason we bring that up is because it fits kind of that third bucket I was talking about organizing it at a provincial level. It's really our first, or at least first recent big attempt to do that, to bring together people across the province to build and create and work on ministry together, you know, for something that would be useful for the province or the entire church. So if that sounds interesting to you, we do meet on Thursday mornings just to keep going forward right now. I think we're in the process. The grant itself is due August 15th. So if we're going to actually apply for the grant, I mean, that's sort of the process we're walking through. But yeah, that's what we've been doing. So shoot a message if that sounds of interest to you. So, but yeah, I mean, and in the future, hopefully we'll have more opportunity to have province level structure, province level ministry, you know, province level direction on creation care and so on. Even though Jerry's not part of our province, we just really like him. So we let him come around. Yes.
I would love to come Thursday, but I actually do not have time for that meeting. But can I just ask a few troubleshooting questions?
Please.
Potentially. So have you all talked to folks? The Mennonite community has been doing a really good work on the doctrine of Christian discovery and doing racial reconciliation and environmental reconciliation in context of that. I think about Catherine Friesenwald. She has been at Goshen in different ways. And there's a book called Watershed Discipleship. Anyone know this book? By Ched Myers, organized. It's great. I want to commend to you Ched Myers' work, thinking about how like we should be watershed oriented as a way to look at our environmental systems and do discipleship around watersheds and what that means for both our bioregional spirituality and the bioregional spirituality that's actually in scripture and how those two are talking to each other. It's awesome. But Catherine has an article in there about, I think, confession and reconciliation. Ched Myers.
Awesome. Exactly why we brought this up.
I think I'll get a link to it.
Yeah, can you write?
That's exactly it. That's it, the Watershed Discipleship. And so it's a larger network, but I think that there could be some helpful conversation partners that would be in this province because they're already doing some of that work outside of in Goshen. They're not Episcopalian, but they are doing some of that, particularly around Indigenous. Like the line that I have learned from my Mennonite friends has been that they've turned their plowshares have been weapons. So instead of making their weapons into plowshares, when they came to this country, they actually turned their plowshares into weapons that colonized the land. And so thinking through that both environmentally and racially has been huge for lots of those communities. So that would be something I'd recommend to you. And then also, there's a group in Australia who's doing CPE, so clinical pastoral education, around an environmental identity as a way to tell the stories of the environment. So they've been sending like young seminarians out into the wilderness or something to do this. And I don't know how that work has gone, but I've seen a couple articles about it. And it might be something to follow down and talk about how you might tell the stories of environment, of ecosystems that are, those are some of my thoughts.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And that's very helpful and exactly why we brought this up. This is ringing a bell to me from when I was doing some research. I'm going to have to go looking for it. Elliot, yeah.
Yeah, I noted, both on the blog I wrote, I noted a really good documentary about environmental racism in terms of Native Americans, well, actually, and Indigenous people, South America, Canada, United States, and that's a good one. And yeah, I know. I just, in fact, read a detective story set in the Australia outback, which is really all about the exploitation of Australian Aborigines lands for development and the way it's impacting those communities. I mean, there had to be a murder in it, of course, but you know, that's really what the book is all about. And that was really so. Yeah, I'm sure that this, in order for the author to write this book, there must be quite a lot going on in Australia in terms of the environmental impact on Aboriginal communities.
Thank you. Nancy, yeah.
Just real quick, thoughts that came to my mind and things we're dealing with up here right now is the loss of the wild, and how you could tie it with racism, because a lot of Black people have never even had the opportunity to experience the wild. Native Americans know the deep value of the wild, and yet up here we are now facing an onslaught of make everything an ATV trail. And so roaring machines are now being allowed everywhere. And it's just destroying a lot of our wonderful wild places. And I mean, if it wasn't bad enough the first time, we're kind of redoing it all a second time. I don't know if that can fit in there, but it's certainly an issue right now up here. There are more and more groups getting the state to open lands and just run crazy with ATVs.
I hate hearing that. I really do, Nancy. And you know, it's if you take a step back, it really calls into question our entire system, our entire economic system, and why I don't know. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but like, why are we doing this? And how broken is capitalism? And there's not really a way to be a good consumer in the middle of the system that we have, you know. Elliot, yeah, you were gonna say.
Well, that's why I was thinking when Jerry was talking about the spiritual side of it and having to have this kind of dialogue. I mean, that is something that needs to come up in that dialogue. What the dominant Weltanschauung of radical capitalism has been, and how that has entirely taken over the thinking, including spiritual thinking, of so much of America. I mean, look at all of these prosperity gospel churches and all that sort of stuff. So that in reflecting and trying to open up a dialogue, one really does have to address that worldview.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead, Jerry. We're probably about to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
I think the first acts of the racial reconciliation and this curriculum would be what's called truth telling, because that is the truth that needs to get told. And that is usually missing, I think, often from our efforts to recruit religious people to environmental action. So I think you're right on the money about that.
Because if you think about it, in the secular world, we start a lot of times, most of the time, with the consequences, right? You know, the ice caps are melting and sea levels going up, and you know, the air is not clear and everything's burning. Like, we start sort of in that place, and we work backwards. We work our actions backward from that point, but that doesn't get at the truth. It doesn't get at the truth of what God wants his world to be and what we're truly called to do, and how far we have moved from that place. And that's the real truth. And Emily, I'm really excited to look at the Mennonite resources, and we've seen a couple of other resources. I know, Elliot, you shared the Laudato Si from the Catholic Church with us, and we have not found a great, truly Anglican resource that encompasses our tradition into that. So there is some work, there's a lot of work to be done. I think where we landed as a small group, which so far has included Greg and Susan, Jerry, Christopher and Heather and me and a couple other folks, that we need to know exactly what it's going to look like before we write the grant, thankfully. And also, I think many of us find we feel strongly enough about the project that even if we didn't get the grant, we would consider also, continuing to move forward. But so gathering what's already out there and really digging into it, it'll be the first step in the grant process, I think. So Jerry, you could tell me I'm wrong, but that was kind of my understanding, is to continue.
What else are we gonna do? We only got 2 weeks to write it.
I know, right? So, well, you guys have had a good head start. So, well, Christopher, you don't give yourself enough credit. So, and I'm glad you've been able to take a vacation. So, I saw you went to scout camp and marching band and sent your son off to middle school. So. Hopefully the school's still open. I saw that there was a school in Indianapolis that was open for a couple hours before they had a crisis.
Yeah, we're still open, but yeah.
So, well, we have 2 more minutes, which is not much, but Emily, actually, before we go, I wanted to circle back to you because you had specifically mentioned a couple of things that you were hoping to get, like maybe not today, but long-term, just about knowing what else is out there. But can you articulate that a little bit more, and then we can see if we can help, or maybe help at another time?
Oh, I don't know that I have more. I feel like I'm very much in an exploration period where we are, I mean, it's really good to be with you all, to be with this network of people that are caring about this work in the Episcopal Church, and so I'm really thankful for that. I've been on a couple other calls with other groups of people who, like, there's a Christian Reformed church group here in West Michigan that's really active, and so, but it's just really lovely to be with another group of folks, and so, and to be with folks from within the diocese that are just really great. So I don't have words yet for the questions, just sort of saying, like, okay, what is happening and how can Plainsong fit in, or how can we support this work, or what, I think also what is ours to do. Like, sometimes it feels like when you're doing this work that you might be the only people that are doing this work, and feel like you have to be all things for all people, which is just not true. It's more like, okay, no, this is specifically our work. And so that's really helpful to hear, okay, this person's here and this person's here, and this is the network that is out there, and here's how we fit into that network, as opposed to like frenetic action all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Right. Know what your sweet spot is. Yeah.
I think there are people here at Plainsong that do, but we, it's an ongoing discernment process of the work.
Wonderful. Thank you. And you don't need to offer anything beside that. I just want to make sure that we had heard your ask and answered anything that was open for you. So that's it. That's our time. It's really lovely to know that there's other people out here doing this work, like I said, and if any of you are interested in joining us on Thursday morning, please just let me or Heather know. And the last thing I'm going to do is find out if the thing that Ken is doing on Thursday costs money, if anybody's interested. And otherwise, we'll bring him and Craig Foster, who's another person in our team, in for a talk later on, a couple months. So anything else for the good of the group before we all go back to our day? Rick, yeah.
So as far as our next meeting, this is the first Monday of the month, correct?
Yes, sir. I feel like the first Monday of September might be Labor Day. Is that a true statement?
That is
Yes,
true.
it is.
All right. Well, Heather and I will have to revisit that and figure out. That'll be my first meeting on a holiday, so I'm not actually sure what the protocol is, but we can figure it out and let the group know. So
There's apparently a pandemic, no rules, I don't know.
yeah, right. So
But most importantly, it's my birthday. So
today or
No.
September? Yeah.
September 7th, the first Monday, Labor Day. So just saying, we might not have a meeting just because we're all going to be celebrating my birthday, not because it's Labor Day.
And there you go. Oh yeah, thank you, Rick. We'll communicate about that too. It was a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you for participating and bringing your ministries, and we will speak to y'all again soon. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone.
Take care.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.